All right, this week we're going to look at sectioning in Inventor. And just like before, you want a project folder and file set up for every assignment you're doing. Because we're dealing with drawings and when you submit them, you got to do the pack and go. And it works a whole lot better if you have a project set up. And so I've done that. Now I've brought this object in. I've applied my center lines. You can do center lines before you create your section, or you can do them after. Either way, you've got to modify your center lines depending upon what kind of section you're going to have. And so just to simplify matters, I'm going to delete the center lines out of this view here. Okay. So in creating sections, and I'm just going to demonstrate various ways to do it. And then I'll show you how this particular object should be sectioned. So you go to Place Views, Section, and then you select your view. And you can see the red box pop up around it. That's selecting that view. And then you want to pick the endpoints of your section line or your cutting plane. And with Inventor, it will snap to centers and quadrants and intersections. You can see the little snap. So you just kind of hover over that bottom quadrant and then come down and you get an object tracking, okay? And then place your first click, and then we'll go up the top and we click again, and then we right click the mouse and go continue. And then here we get where we want to set our stuff up. And because I've already worked through multiple trials on sectioning, it's saying the view identifier is number F. So I'm just going to type in A. The scale, it inherits the scale from the base view. And most of the time it's going to stay the same as the base view. So we leave it at that. A lot of times you're going to do like full depth, so we'll just leave that, and we'll leave that at projected and orthographic. So we'll just leave all these things as a default. This would show hidden lines. This shows it as a solid, okay? We'll talk about these things later. And then you drag your mouse over the direction you want the section to be placed on your drawing. And then you left click your mouse again, and it creates it. Okay, so here we have a full section. And if the hatching is not based on the material, so we can double click the hatch, and then we can change the pattern here to one of the other patterns based on whatever material type that we have. Okay. And so you would want to do that. Most of the time, the scaling will work out okay based on the view, that the scale of your view. But if you have to adjust it, you can adjust it here. If you need to adjust the angle, especially when we start sectioning assembly drawings, each part needs to be at a different angle. Okay. And so I'm just going to cancel out of that and leave it like it is, okay? Okay, so that's a full section. So let me delete that. And if the assignment calls for a half section, kind of the same process, and I'm going to start at the top this time and come down to the center and then go over to the side. And then right click my mouse, go continue, pull it over. And now I have a half section. Okay. And in a case like this, you know, it kind of depends. Do you want to show hidden lines or not show hidden lines? The thing being is you never show hidden lines inside the hatch. So if we wanted to show hidden lines, we could go back to edit view and change over here to display hidden lines and go okay. But now, which is fine down here in the solid part of the object, but up here we do not want hidden lines in our hatching. So we select it and we turn off visibility for those lines. Okay. So that's a half section, which neither of those is the appropriate way to section this object. The keyway makes it challenging. If we did not have a keyway, we would do a full section through here, starting at the bottom, coming up to the center, and then going up through that hole there. And what it does is it's like it rotates that hole up to the top of our view, which is the appropriate way to section an object that has a circular pattern in it like this. But as you can see, it distorts the keyway. Okay, so if this object did not have a keyway, this would be perfectly acceptable. Okay, and then of course you would add your center marks to it. So I'm going to leave it like this, and now I want to apply my center lines. So I'm going to go with a circular pattern, and I have to pick the center my first object, center my second object, my third object. Whoa, it didn't pick first time. So let's go back. It is not working with the cutting plane in it already. So let's back up and delete that. Let's try it again. There we go. Now we're working. And when you do the circular pattern, you have to go back to the very beginning to make a complete circle. Okay, now if we were to place our section. Oh, what happened? I guess I didn't click OK. Let's do that again. Create. There we go. Left out a crucial step. Okay, section. Okay. Now, one of the problems with Inventor is it'll just put these lines right on top of each other, and you really don't want the center lines under a cutting plane line. But it makes it hard to delete them. So what we do is we'll select that center mark and drag the length of the line back so that it doesn't show inside the gaps of the cutting plane. And so, okay, so that one, yeah, you can see it right there. Oh, that was a cutting plane. It's not wanting to pick up. Center mark, there we go. And you can only shorten these a certain amount, but we do want to shorten them so that they're not showing up in the gaps. I don't know, can we delete that? Let me try it. Yeah, okay, so I could just delete that one and it would be fine. So, or so that we could drag that out. Okay, so that's how you would deal with, you don't want center lines under your cutting plane line. Okay, so let's look at a couple of other things. This one is not a good example of a sliced section, but some of the parts that you're going to have you would want to slice them. And so now we're set at full depth, which means it will show all the way through the part. If we change this to a distance, and then we can specify the distance that we want. And let me show you how one looks. Okay, so I've got it set at 1/4 inch. And this is how it shows. So it only shows what the cutting plane crosses out a distance of 1/4 of an inch in this case. And you see here at the bottom, you've got extra lines because that's the curvature of those circles at the 1/4 of an inch mark. Okay. And so to edit that, I come back and select the cutting plane line and go edit section properties. And I can change my distance. So let's make it 0.5, make it a little bit more obvious to you. Okay, so you can see there it's picking up the rest of the other side of that. So this, like I said, this is not a good example of how to use that. If I were to make the distance 0, which it's not actually 0, but it's like an almost infinitesimal 0.000 something. Okay, so it's basically a slice through the object at that point, and you can see it shows no curvature of the circles on the other side. But once again, this is not an example of how you would use that. But we could, use it to include, there you go, that shows the number there, okay. You could do include slice. I'm not real sure how it changes those things, but you could play with those, certainly play with those things. Okay, so let's delete that. Oh, while we're here. Okay, so it puts the section name and the scale under it. You can go edit view label. And well, let's go back to the edit the view first. Here you can turn off the visibility of it. Okay, so it doesn't show. Okay, if you've just got one section in your drawing, and they should always start with A. All right, I'm sorry, they should always start with A. But if you just got one section, then it's not critical that you label it. But if you've got multiple sections on your paper, they do need to be labeled. Okay, and you can click here to edit it. And if you don't want the scale, you can just delete the whole scale thing. Okay, and it just shows the section name. All right, so now let's go to how would you section this object correctly? We do that by creating a sketch. And we use the sketch as our cutting plane. So I'm going to go start a sketch, and I'm going to select that view. So it's tied to that view. And what I want, I need a line there, and I'm going to bring it up long. You can see it in purple. Okay, and I'm going to go with another line from the center. And that's at 30 degrees, so I'm going to bring it outside here until I get to 30 degrees. Come on. Okay, I'll just type it 8.2 tab 30. Okay. And now I want a circle that is centered here and about the midpoint there, because my cutting plane is going to come up to the center, up to here, come around to there, and then go out, because I need to be able to have this arc in there. So now let's do some trimming. And so I'm going to trim out the circle And I'm going to trim out this line on the inside, and I'll trim this line on the outside of the circle. So now, if you can see it in the purple, my cutting plane line is going to come up to here, around in an arc, and then out in a straight line. And so I'll go finish. What is that? Oh, that's... it projected that when I set it at an angle. Let's see. We make it sketch on. I'm going to leave it there. Let's see how it put that in when I put a dimension in. So let's see how this works. So now I'll go section view, and it asks you to select a view or a view sketch. And so I'll come down and select that, and then pull it out. Okay, and there, I'm looking at it. Yeah, everything looks good. There's the correct way you would section this one, because it has a circular bolt pattern, but then it also has a keyway that needs to be done. Okay, so I think I've pretty well covered things in your basic sectioning. So we'll stop this video and then come back with another one to pick up a couple of other things, okay?